Go ahead, Katie.
Okay, next, sorry about that. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. And we're excited to have this opportunity to speak with you regarding the Atlanta experience. So on behalf of the Center for Career Services at GW, we want to welcome you to this GW in Atlanta Global Health Career Insights panel. My name is Katie Green, and I'm the Health Industry Career Coach here at GW, and I'll be moderating the panel. We're honored to be joined today by our panelists, Jasmine Archer, who's a GW alum and health scientist at the Center for Disease Control, who was present and is having technical difficulties right now, so she'll be joining us again in just a moment. And then we do have present with us right now, Abby McDaniel, a program coordinator at CARE. And so I'm going to let each of our guests introduce themselves more fully in a moment, but I wanted to let you know what to expect from today's session. So we'll be recording today's event, and we'll send out the recording shortly after the event ends. We also recommend that attendees use headphones for best sound quality, and our panelists will highlight their experience with connecting college to career. They'll share suggestions on searching for employment in a new city, and share what their work-life experience has personally been like in the city of Atlanta. So all attendees are intentionally muted right now, but there will be time for questions at the end. If you have specific questions during the event, please feel free to add them to the Q&A box. And at this time, we're going to move into the actual panel discussion. So Abby, thank you for being here today. And I'm wondering if you could just briefly introduce yourself, particularly, are you a native of Atlanta or where did you live previously? And then could you tell us a bit about your current job and what it entails?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. I am a native of Georgia, so grew up outside of the city, but have been living in Atlanta ever since I finished college, and so about 7 or 8 years. Both of my degrees are from institutions in Georgia. I did graduate school at the Georgia Institute of Technology, studying international affairs, where I focused on international development. And after graduate school, I began working at CARE. I've been there about 3.5 years. I work in our Health Equity and Rights Department, which was previously Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights. So we really have a focus on those topic areas. And I'm the program coordinator, which is a role that's fairly broad. And I basically support our department both with technical pieces as well as support the operations of the department.
Wonderful, thank you. And Jasmine, welcome. I'm glad everything worked out with your technology. Good to see you. If you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name's Jasmine Archer. I'm actually not from Atlanta or Georgia. I was a military brat, so bounced around from Puerto Rico to Florida and ended up in Kentucky for high school and going to college in Kentucky. I actually ended up in Atlanta after doing a fellowship after grad school. So I was in DC and we got my master's at GW and in public health. And then I worked at JSI for a nonprofit for about a year before joining the fellowship overseas. So actually it was a CDC ASPPH, which is like the Association for Schools of Public Health in the US. And I was in Cameroon for 2 years and I was like, I'm only doing the CDC fellowship just so I can get experience. I have no interest in living in Atlanta. I will go back to, the nonprofit world and go back to DC. Little did I know that was not going to be the plan for me. I stayed on with CDC and I moved back to the US and was based at headquarters in Atlanta since 2017. PEPFAR, which is a Bush administration program that was the AIDS response on the continent of Africa. We've now expanded to the Caribbean and to some countries in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. And yeah, so I work supporting HIV programs. My work predominantly focuses on around health economics and how taxpayer dollars are affecting this response on the continent. So we could talk a little bit more about that later, but that's just a high level overview.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you saying how, maybe it wasn't what you had anticipated when you went to Atlanta. You thought I'm going to be coming back to DC. So and speaking of what we prepare for and think we're going to do, could both of you speak about the connection between your major and your career goals, and maybe how you did or didn't intentionally engage during your campus time to gain skills for your career?
I guess I'll go ahead. So I think that for me, I didn't study public health. I studied international affairs and was really interested in international development. And it actually wasn't until I finished my degree and I had a bit of a gap after I graduated that I really realized a specific interest in public health and discovered that through some different informational interviews and mentors that I had. And so, I think the process of going through school and then sort of some of the time afterward was about kind of refining my interests and finding that specific interest in public health. So yeah, I guess just to say that sometimes the major isn't exactly where you end up.
And for me, yeah, I mean, I would say indirectly there was a connection, directly there was not. I was a psychology, biology major with intentions of going to medical school. I did a program that showed me that that was not what I wanted to do, and being a doctor was not what I wanted to be. So I continued on just to finish in undergrad, and I took a year working the front desk of a law firm, applying for grad school and trying to figure out where my next steps would be and what that would look like. So I would say undergrad prepared me. I was an athlete, so that very much rigorousness of your schedule and early class times, early gym times, early workout times. I think that prepared me to be able to work in the strict time of a law firm and all that comes with that, and prepared me with keeping a schedule. But it definitely, there was not much of a connection and I continue to divert from that. So I just say just be open, you never know what the future holds.
Before we move into sort of more of an Atlanta focus, I'm wondering if we could talk a bit about those transferable skills. So whether it was your first position after graduation, undergrad or grad, in which you developed helpful transferable skills for your next step in your career, could you just talk a little bit about how you view the necessity of gaining skills, being open to gaining new skills, and how that can help you in your professional development?
Sure. So going back a little bit to the idea of having a different major than where you end up, my undergraduate degree was actually in English literature. And that's definitely a place where I gained one of the transferable skills that I would say I still use, which is, just having strong writing skills, being able to take in a lot of information, synthesize it, boil it down. I think that's something that has definitely been useful in the public health field, and then just generally. Uh, Someone else says they were an English undergrad. So yeah, I would say that's my key, like, transferable skill.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, they can certainly be anywhere. And then how do you use that skill in your current position?
So I think a variety of ways. I mean, I've been in positions where someone in senior leadership says, like, I've got this really long report. I need you to give me a paragraph. So that's one example. Also in developing, briefs and overviews of our projects. That's a common way that I use that as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Just nothing is for naught, right?
Yeah,
You can,
exactly.
Jasmine, what about you?
I would definitely say both my first job out of undergrad, working in the law firm and that strict structure. And then, when I was deciding on what I wanted to focus on in getting my public health, which was policy, and the internships and positions that I took around that were also very much, I would say, within the legal sphere, which I did not in the beginning, didn't see that connection. I was working on K Street and working for some lobbying firms. And then when I was really deciding, I don't know if this is something I really want to do. I like reading about the Affordable Care Act. I like talking about domestic health policy, but is this what I want to do on a day-to-day basis? Not really, but the skills around that I think helped move me to the diplomatic sphere, which is where I was when I was in Cameroon and working in PEPFAR. I think when people go into public health or international affairs, there's a lot of emphasis on development, but if you go the federal government route, and especially in this interagency setting, I'm interacting with um, ambassadors and ministers of health. It is very much formalized. And I think those soft skills that I gained along the way were very helpful.
Thank you for that. That's great. Really just focusing on maximizing every opportunity for the next unanticipated phase at times. So moving into the focus on Atlanta, could you each describe what were the search and networking strategies you utilized to secure employment in Atlanta? And what steps would you encourage students to take with regard to their own search? Especially if this is going to be a new state or a new city in which you're living.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm the best person to answer because I was already here. But some of the searching strategies I use that I think are most helpful, probably the main one would be like informational interviewing and doing coffee chats. That's actually how I, found my entry point into care. It was from a coffee chat that I had had a year prior. With someone, and the following year a position that I was interested in came up, and I emailed that person and they were willing to be a reference for me. And I think there were several other situations like that where maybe I didn't get the job or an opportunity out of it, but I learned a lot about the field I was trying to enter. So I'm an introvert, and the idea of like reaching out to, people I might not know or that I have a loose connection with was definitely like something that was past my comfort zone. But it definitely, I think, was the most helpful thing to really find an opportunity and not just be like sending applications out into the void.
Right. No, thank you for that insight. And it sounds as though you also utilized your network that wasn't too foreign. So the colleague that you had at the coffee shop. And really the nugget of wisdom here is to remember that everyone should drink coffee and then they'll find their employment, is what you're saying, right? No, that's great advice. Informational interviews, putting a face to a name. Jasmine, what about you? What would you say was part of your search?
Well, I would say that when I wasn't coming to Atlanta, I was just in a different point in my career. I think after undergrad and directly after grad school, I was definitely just throwing my resumes at every possible opportunity. And I even did learn from that. When I was in Louisville, I had met with the commissioner of health, who I didn't know had a connection to DC, and, started to really use those connection points to just, I think, as Abby said, have lunches, send emails. And when I was coming back to Atlanta and even thinking back, like, is this job really what I want to be doing? I reached out to my network. Honestly, I hope that the days of just sending out email or sending out resumes are behind me. You never know what the future holds, but really utilizing, I think, the network that I've created within CDC. We work with a lot of implementing partners. We work in consortia and communities of practice where you really are developing relationships with a lot of different people and different entities. So I would say definitely at this point in my career, reaching out to that network. No one's ever just going to hand you a job, but you at least know the position. You can talk to the people at those entities and see if it's a place that would be a good fit for you, and what the culture and the environment is like. I think at this point, I know I can do the job. I know that I have the skill set to do the job, but it's about quality of life. It's about work culture. It's about those things that I think with time and your career and profession, that's I think the most useful way to find jobs that are a good fit and most useful for your time, because I've been there, done that, sending out 10 to 20 resumes a day. And you will have to go through that. I don't want to make it seem like you have to skip through that phase.
Right. No, but I think that's extremely important to see that the time and energy that you put in now to build your network does pay off long term, because now that you have gained those skill sets and you feel more secure as someone who can contribute to a company, you now can just rely on those relationships to let you know about opportunities and to check in on workplace culture. It's nice to hear that, even for anyone at any point in their career development, even like myself, to know that doing the networking is always beneficial.
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you for your insight, both of you. So what are some unique or enjoyable aspects of living and working in Atlanta? And for those maybe interested in moving to the city, what are some helpful things to consider in terms of maybe where you might want to live or how to cultivate community? So basically just looking for some general insight on the city and how you can foster, life for yourself in the city.
Yeah, I love Atlanta. I feel like a lot of people, maybe don't have the best perception of it sometimes, but I really like it here. A couple of the things that I like, one is the cost of living. As compared to other major cities, I think you might be pleasantly surprised at just a lower cost of living here. And the second is that you sometimes hear Atlanta referred to as a city in a forest. So there's a lot of greenery, a lot of parks. You really do feel like you're kind of in a forest, but you're like in the middle of the city sometimes. Probably the main thing that I would say to consider, especially, depending on where you're coming from, is that there's not really public transportation here. It's very limited, and Atlanta is a city with a lot of sprawl and a fair amount of traffic during normal times. And so thinking about where you want to live in relation to where you're working is definitely important. And the CDC and I think a lot of the global health organizations are kind of in the like east or northeast quadrant of the city. So that might be kind of a region you'd want to consider.
Jasmine, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I had no point of reference for Atlanta, and my colleagues in the field had not lived in Atlanta for 10, 15 years, and they were like, it's changed so much. I don't even want to give you an opinion of what it was a decade ago. So, just what Abby said, I found a place that was near my office, and then from there, I was kind of like, I don't know if this is the best area livable in terms of like I have a dog, like walking to parks and things of that nature. So from my time in Atlanta, I just was very, I made it a point every weekend to do things in different parts of the city because, like Abby said, it is pretty spread out. So kind of, I don't know if you guys, if anyone's from New York, you stay in your your borough, and the traffic is something I had never experienced. It is quite a beast, and you definitely plan your life around the traffic in Atlanta. So I just really took my time exploring the neighborhoods. But if you're moving from outside of Atlanta to Atlanta for a job, I highly recommend living near work.
And so thinking about your professional experience at your place of employment, so CDC and care, what what do you see as some good opportunities for entry-level positions in your company? And I know that you're not recruiters or working in HR, but I just mean in terms of what you understand as the organization and how it works. You know, what are some good departments to consider, or some good types of positions that you think would be worth putting on someone's radar?
Yeah, so specifically talking about care, the position I started in, I think is considered kind of an entry-level position, and it's called program officer. And I think you see that title at a lot of nonprofits, and sometimes it means different things. But the program officer role is, you know, I think kind of an entry-level point into the organization. And then, of course, internships. We do have quite a few interns that go through care, and you know, we have had several that stay on for, you know, longer than just one semester, and sometimes end up going on to work in like either a consulting position, or, you know, they end up full time. So I do think the internship is a good place to start.
I think for CDC, it's a little bit more unique in the sense of it's very much a scientific, almost clinical area of work. So a lot of folks, if you want to be in the more technical track, I think at baseline, typically a master's is necessary. If you just have an interest in working at CDC and another um, area of interest like business and operations, management and operations, definitely, you know, we are on the federal government general schedule. So I would say anywhere from a GS7 up to a GS9, maybe a GS11. I think that in terms of internships, we definitely do have some undergraduate internships. I think that they're through specific universities in Atlanta. I will say that. But I would say another opportunity into the federal government, particularly CDC, that a lot of people, I don't think it's on their radar, are through contracting agencies. Northrop Grumman, ICF, there's another one called Rumpf and Associates. And I'm sure on the internet you can probably find the list of contracting entities with CDC. And that is always, I tell people, an amazing first step into the federal government, not just at CDC, because many times you start working with the team, even though you're employed by your contracting agency, you're working and sitting at the CDC or whatever federal agency. And if they have an FTE, which we call a full-time employment position, you know, they'll let you know, you can apply, and you typically already have that skill set since you've been doing the job. So definitely would say CDC is a little bit more unique. I don't think it's impossible, but it definitely, you're talking like I'm a health scientist, and that did require, like you'll see in USA Jobs, how many years and credits of your education, which typically you might not have to have your complete master's, but you have to have some credits. So I would say it's just a little bit more unique in that sense.
It's very true, and definitely the advice of looking up the partners, the partner organizations, is a great way to see what the needs are, and you know, what the types of jobs are that are posted. In terms of both of your educational experiences, because that's very true, Jasmine, that a master's is oftentimes required when it comes to the more clinical or technical scientist route. Based on both of your career trajectories, when did you determine, and why did you determine that it was time to pursue further education? What do you think students should be looking for in terms of their own journeys?
So for me, after I finished my bachelor's, I took a break. I worked for 2 years, worked actually at Georgia State University, and was kind of using that time to decide, you know, if I wanted to go to grad school, what I wanted to study. And, you know, I'm really glad I took that time, because if I had decided to go for a graduate degree right after undergrad, I probably would have gotten like a master's in English literature, and I don't think that would have been the right step. So I, you know, probably, other than the degree I ended up getting, I considered going to law school, went through like a lot of that process, took the LSAT, et cetera. But I knew I was going to do something like in like a social socially focused, like public service kind of field. And yeah, and just kind of went through different career options from there, and knew I needed higher level education and also more specific education as to what I was interested in doing.
So found your general interest and then you needed that niche kind of education. Thanks.
I think for me, I would say I probably would have done some things differently. I know your previous question was about CDC, and I think that I would have probably looked for more community level public health positions that were local, and kind of explored what that was like, or taking, like Abby did, taking a position at the university just to kind of, whether it would be within the School of Public Health or elsewhere, just to get a feel for the university, get a feel for what the program was like and what students were saying about the program. I think I just didn't know what I didn't know. I knew that for a lot of the jobs that I was looking at, it required a master. So I was like, I need to do it and I need to go. But I definitely, when people ask me now, I tell them take the time and also see if you can get a job at the university to help with costs. I mean, I think that was something that some of my counterparts in my cohort did, which I think was very, very smart. And it significantly can, at a university like GW, can impact how much student loans you take out. And I think I would just tell people just to slow down. You can always go back to school. But I think it's the investment that I put into both with time and money at GW. I would say it worked out for me, but I know some people that, they took the same path and it really wasn't. They went on to medical school, they went on to law school, and maybe they didn't really need the MPH. And again, it's significant investment. So I would say take the time to make sure you can kind of see the path. At least you might change, but at least have an idea, because I definitely didn't. I figured it out along the way.
Thank you for that. Yeah, questioning the cost benefit, right, in terms of timing. I appreciate that. So could both of you, maybe as we summarize this Atlanta journey, just sort of provide any helpful summarizing insights as to why you like Atlanta, and do you see the city being a place, whether or not this remains true for you, do you see it as a place in which you can potentially grow in your career? There are other types of organizations that you might consider in the future. So just kind of talking about the potential. What is the potential that the city has to offer?
Yes, I mean, I think this is a city that has a focus on public health, and so there are, a handful of organizations that, nonprofit organizations that you could work for. Of course, the CDC is here. As Jasmine mentioned, definitely like consulting or contracting roles in public health are available here. So I do think there's a fair amount of opportunity to continue to grow and stay in the city. Is it the same amount of opportunities that you might have in like a DC? Maybe not, but I think that you could come here and, and stay a while and have some other opportunities. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Again, I never saw myself in Atlanta. I always thought I would be in DC, really. I thought that's where I would stay. The cost of living, though, I mean, you can't beat it. I will have to say, I think a lot of Atlantans say that rent is cheap. I don't agree with that, but I think everything else is much cheaper. I think the rent in Atlanta is it's creeping up to being as close to DC, but other things, eating out, going to movies, bars, concerts, I just feel like those things, your everyday life is definitely much cheaper. I do like the diversity. There's a lot of different types of people in Atlanta, and I think that's due to the industry. I mean, there's a lot of like tech companies coming to Atlanta, and just a lot of different types of folks. And if you like to travel, I think you cannot beat flying out of Atlanta Airport to basically anywhere. It is a great place to be if you travel. I feel like even being in Atlanta, not having family or friends there, people are always, they have layovers, they're flying through, it's just, I see people all the time that I didn't think that I would see very often moving to Atlanta. So I don't know, even if there's not a job for me in Atlanta, I think in this virtual setting, I would probably be trying to see how I could work virtually from Atlanta. I definitely see Atlanta as a home base, and I enjoy my quality of life in Atlanta.
Thank you. That's really, both of you, very helpful insight, and really plugging the cultivating of network informational interviews, which for students listening, please check out, excuse me, our alumni page on LinkedIn, where you can find folks that are working in Atlanta in industries of interest, as well as GW Career Connect. So make sure to check those out as you're doing your searching. We can now transition to some Q&A. And so, Rachel, is there anything that you need to say or add with regard to this next phase?
Do you want me to read the questions, Katie?
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure that if everyone knew that there was, they can put it in the Q&A chat. Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to add them to the Q&A box, and we will get to them in the order that they come in.
Okay, so some of this might have been somewhat discussed in your answers, but you can still summarize. So one question is, do you have any suggestions on how to get internships in the Atlanta area?
Yeah, so I'll just briefly talk about CARE. And I wanted to mention this is that we post and hire for internships on usually like a rolling basis and then on an as needed basis. So if you were to be looking for an internship with us, you might not see it posted kind of at the normal like cadence that you might see like spring, summer internships posted. Sometimes we post them kind of late before, like, for instance, the summer starts or the fall starts. So, if you were looking for a summer internship, you might see something available at CARE in late April or May. So definitely something to keep in mind. And then I'll also just mention that this summer, internships at CARE are going to remain virtual, even if our staff go back to the office. So if you wanted to intern with us and didn't want to come all the way here, remote options are available. And we also have an office in DC. But yeah, I know that's specific to CARE, but just thought I would mention a few of those things.
Through CDC, if you check USA Jobs, there should be, it's called Summer Pathways, and that's normally a good opportunity. I don't think that there's not an education requirement in terms of having a master's. I think that it's some undergraduate education, and that is through the USA Jobs portal. So you will get a firsthand experience on making a federal resume if you don't have one already. And also ORISE. I think that's another one that is also overlooked, and you do not have to have a master's depending on the position, but they don't all require a master's. And that's definitely paid. I think right now they're still also virtual. I I'm not opposed to internships in a virtual setting, but I think for me, if I was having an intern, I would have some reservations about it. I think a lot of it, the part of an internship is getting to know people and me being able to introduce you to folks within CDC. So I know our branch we've kind of had a pause on internships just because we're not in person, but I definitely know ORISE is still continuing on. It's outside of USA Jobs, so I highly recommend ORISE. I think it's a great opportunity, and again, it's paid and I believe offers benefits as well. And they can be longer than the summer. It can be, I think, up to 2 or 3 years.
Thank you. So Jared, I hope that Jasmine's answer has helped you with the question you posted. Because I'm just going to keep moving on. We have several questions. Let's see. So this is kind of a multi-layered question. So I'm a later career GW alum and a federal employee. I'm still considering a move to Atlanta should anything come up that is federal. If you have any advice for someone in my shoes, that would help. For example, how can networking help in the tighter confines of a federal job announcement? And perhaps which areas near the CDC are good to look into for living?
I think it's great that you're already in the federal system because you could actually just do a lateral into a position. I believe that you can apply for as an internal federal employee for some positions. So I think that's already a great first step. Um, and I think that in terms of working, I'm not sure which agency you're in. If you're in the HHS system, then you probably get some of the CDC emails so you can see some of the brown bags and different talks that are open externally. I would always say join those, ask questions, reach out to speakers or panelists if you have access to them. And if not, LinkedIn. I mean, people, and when I can see like they're federal employees and they reach out to me, I typically always accept if they direct message or have questions. I don't think people are shy. We all know that it is, we call it the black box of entering into federal government. We hope, there's different initiatives going on the inside to make that more transparent, but people are always willing to talk. And in terms of neighborhoods, CDC we have several different campuses which are in relatively suburban or around Emory. So you don't have anything to worry about if you are living near those areas. I would say what's becoming trendy is living in like southeast and southwest Atlanta. Some of those neighborhoods are street by street. So I would always say just go look and drive by. Don't put any money down on a place you haven't seen or you haven't visited. That is a fatal mistake. I think we know that even being in DC, but go and visit and or ask someone to drive by or if they know the neighborhood.
Great, thanks. So let's see, another student says that I'm an MPH Global Health EPI student in my final semester. My background includes work in community health at local health department and as Peace Corps volunteer. And my master's has a strong EPI bent. So I've noticed that a lot of global health jobs are more program management focused. Is my instinct correct? I think probably both of you could have thoughts on that.
I'll speak just in terms of you being an RPCV. I hope you know that gives you preference in federal government hiring. I don't know. I think there might be a time limit after UCOS, so you should look into that. But definitely don't let that time run out before you start. If you're interested in being a federal employee, highly recommend you applying soon. I think crux of all the work that we do. I wouldn't say that that's the focus. I started out as like Abby, I started out as a program coordinator, so it was definitely program management focus. I think it's a skill that's very much necessary, but that's not my work. I work in health economics and doing cost analyses and cost effectiveness of some of our interventions in the field. So I think it just depends on the department and the group that you're interested in working with.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I would also say, I don't know exactly what percentage, but so many of our staff are returned Peace Corps volunteers. So that's super common, and I think probably gives you an edge in the nonprofit space as well. And it's a little hard to answer in regards to program management because that is a fair amount of what I do. And I would agree that it's hard to avoid it. Like, I feel like a lot of roles, like you're gonna probably end up doing some of that, but I think, at CARE, there's certainly more technical, you can certainly get into more technical positions where that's less of your focus as well.
Thank you. Maybe we can transition to the question that focuses on the types of activities and skills to highlight on a resume or cover letter when applying for an entry-level position after a master's in public health, or just what skills you think in general would be benefit to would be of benefit to highlight? Of course, that's a large question because we don't know what industry someone's going into, but from your experience in your work, what are some skills you think are worthy of highlighting?
I think time management and organization. I think those are, fresh out of undergrad. I don't think many people are going to have very high expectations that you're going to meet every single um, job criteria or job duties, but I think it's more so the attitude and on your resume, can we see even from internships, have you handled multiple tasks? Have you organized meetings? Can you speak well? Can you, like if we were to ask you to get up in front of folks and speak, or I think Abby really mentioned the writing piece, that's really, really huge. And even if that's showcasing work that you did in school, I think at CDC, when we look at interns, those are things that we sometimes request and ask, sharing the work that you've done. But I wouldn't put so much pressure on yourself of if you see jobs and feeling like you're not qualified, still apply. Just make sure your resume and whatever, even if it's a short-term internship or if it's a project, what was your role and how did you lead and carry that through and what were your deliverables? I think showcasing that is always it's what we look for when we're looking at resumes, particularly for folks. Those tend to be interns fresh out of undergrad.
Okay, and I think that our panelists have addressed your question, June. I will ask it again, but it's mostly the type of positions for post BA in your fields, but it sounds like there are good internship opportunities and fellowship opportunities that might last a couple of years in the CDC to help you get your foot in the door. Is there anything else either of you want to add with regard to that question? It's okay if not, I just want to give due diligence to the question.
Yeah, I would just say my original position at CARE actually did not require a graduate degree. Pretty much every position above that did, but the program officer role only required a bachelor's. And so, I think it is possible to maybe get your first job without going directly for the master's.
Thank you. Then next question from Joya is, I'm graduating with my MPH in June, congratulations, and also have 10 years of experience as a clinical RN. Are there technical or clinical opportunities that would value that type of experience?
We have a nurse on our team, so I think absolutely. I would say that all the positions that you might see at CDC might not ask for a clinical degree or background, but knowing, I would say specifically like around care and treatment, around prevention, around prep, around those like very, I think, clinical technical areas where you could offer guidance and I would say, for example, one thing that we're trying to push is test and start. So that means that as soon as I identify a positive, we're giving someone their ARBs and putting them on treatment. So I think things like that, like if you're going to be influencing guidance and policies for some of the host countries we work in, that clinical background, I mean, it's I can't offer that expertise, and it's something that is definitely very, very useful. And you'll see most teams have, especially in the care and treatment realm, they're led by medical officers. I'm not sure if you can be a medical officer without an MD, but you definitely can be you can have a clinical position within the world that I do. And I've only been in the global side, so I can't speak to the domestic side, which is a whole other area, but definitely I would say even if the position doesn't ask for a clinical background, having that would be definitely an asset that they would value.
Absolutely, great insight. I mean, those are transferable skills, so they can only be of benefit, Joya. So good luck to you in your search. Okay, let's see. Tamika says, I have just relocated to Atlanta from New York. I have been in a leadership role at the same hospital, ambulatory care, for over 12 years, so I'm re-entering the job market with hopes of transitioning to a population health position in the federal realm. I have an MHA and would love some advice on getting into the federal realm. Would the fellowship internship route be best, or maybe there's another way to look at this?
I think it could be, I mean, I guess I think it's, I want to see the question. I don't know what happened to the Q&A. Sorry, it went away from me. Can you repeat?
Yeah, sure.
Thank
I've
you.
just relocated to Atlanta from New York. I've been in a leadership role at the same hospital in ambulatory care for over 12 years, so I'm re-entering the job market with hopes of transitioning to a population health position in the federal realm. I have an MHA and would love some advice on getting into the federal realm. Would the fellowship internship route be best?
Not if you are, you have a lot of experience. I almost think you would be overqualified for the fellowship, honestly. I would say that in my cohort, there was one PhD um, graduate. The rest of us were master's level, and no one, some folks went on to get a clinical degree, but no one had a clinical degree um, that was in the cohort. I think you'd be an asset to CDC, whether that's domestically or internationally. And I think looking for those positions, especially at the domestic level, that like work with um, local state health departments. Some of the big centers that I think of are like the Injury Center, STDs. There's DHAP, which is the Division of HIV/AIDS Prevention, which is also domestic. I think that they, you know, it's just a matter of getting your foot in the door. But I think that with your, I think with your background, I would say going the contractor route would probably be the better way because you have significant experience. And unless you wanted to transition to global health and you wanted that field, I would be concerned that it would be a significant pay cut for you and it might be something that you were overqualified for.
Um, let's see, in terms of Catherine's question about moving from DC to Atlanta, and maybe even within Georgia, Abby, was there any part of your negotiation or anything that the company was willing to do for you to help the cost of moving? The concern is many of the positions do not pay for a move. That has kept me from applying for a large number of jobs.
Yeah, so of course I was already living in the area, so didn't need to relocate. And I do think, you know, maybe at like my level, you know, maybe having a move paid for might be more challenging. But I think a few grade levels up, I think it is possible to have your relocation expenses covered. I would also say that at CARE, they are pretty flexible about sometimes being open to being based in a different city. Especially if it's a city where CARE has an office. So our headquarters are in Atlanta, but we have DC, New York, San Francisco offices. And you know, and in some cases even being remote. So, you know, sometimes in the positions it will say like anywhere CARE has an office, this position is open to. So, you know, I would say maybe be open to that as well.
Go ahead, Jasmine.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I know CDC doesn't tend to offer relocation. It would be maybe for a very senior position. The fellowship did offer a package for you to return back to the US because we were overseas. But I will say, leaving for the fellowship, I did get a part-time job to help with the cost of going overseas. I mean, they did reimburse you, but you have to pay for a lot of that up front. Vaccinations, your flight, all those things are, and it was a big complaint that I had because I felt like it's also could be cost prohibitive for someone who might not be able to do those things. I had that privilege that I was just like, well, I can just, work at a part-time job for a few months to get me over there. But um it's difficult. I think it's something that um, I do wonder in this virtual setting what that change could look like. Like Abby said, people working with you, giving you some time. Maybe you don't have to immediately move. I know it's been an issue with us trying to get folks to start positions within my branch that they've asked for relocation or they've asked for us to give them a set timeline on how long they can stay in their place, which is it's just very difficult because it's out of even the agency. It's up at OPM. With when we return to office, there are certain rules on how often you have to be back, you have to be physically present in the city and in the office due to locality pay.
Well, thank you for that transparency. And I think that to Catherine's question, for other organizations, whether federal or not, particularly not, I think that it's certainly something you can put into your discussion before choosing to accept a position. That yes, I'm eager to accept this position, yet I would be, is it possible to negotiate on moving expenses? Is that something that you can help me with? It's something we could talk about offline. You can always schedule an appointment with your career coach. But I do want to encourage people to know that when you look at a benefits package, some places are going to be very clear that they don't offer that. As Jasmine just mentioned, that seems like that's pretty obvious when they make it clear they don't. But also other organizations will do that. People will bend over backwards at times when they really want you to come. And to Abby's point, if you are working virtually because you have sites in other cities, it's also just starting a position and showing your great worth and what you contribute. And then that can always be addressed later, 6 months down the line. I want to looking to come to the city, and what can you do to help me with that? So things to think about. Let's see here. Ugo, I believe that the question you ask is similar to the student who has years of experience as an RN. So these your skills would be considered transferable and useful depending on the needs of the position and your ability to look at evaluation, prevention, assessment. I'll read the question, but just putting that out there. I'm a graduate of medical school, but did not go to residency. I'm completing my MPH in June. Do you feel there are areas in the CDC where my skills could be of use? So.
Absolutely. I mean, and the only thing I would add to that, and I'm not saying this is to push you to go to residency, but it's something that people don't know. If you are a licensed physician, that is an annual $25,000 bonus that you get. So again, you do not need to, you don't have to go to residency in order to be considered for a position at CDC. You definitely can. I just always tell people that who have completed some medical school. Maybe that'll entice you, maybe not, but that is something that is an added benefit if you maintain your licensure as a medical doctor. No questions asked. That's a bonus that is offered to you. I think even without residency, the fact that you have medical school credits, again, I'm not a medical officer. You'd have to look into the full job qualifications for that, but I definitely think even in some of the clinical roles that you would be an asset and should definitely apply, whether that's global or domestic.
Great. And then I think we should just, we're very efficient, by the way. Look at this. We're at the final question for almost the top of the hour. But are international students able to get placements? And so I think for both of your organizations, do you know if they consider international employees?
I'm not totally sure. I'm pretty sure that we've had a couple of interns that are international students. I believe they may have been Fulbright students. I'm not positive. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if I have the best information, but could definitely find out for you.
That often makes sense. It's in terms of what I mean by that is it makes sense that it would be based on the person's qualifications. So and the need for the company. If you want to clarify your question, if you have more information to provide about what you're studying and which organization you were referring to, feel free to put that in the chat so we can provide more detailed information. Jasmine, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I would
Okay.
say, even if the question too is related to being a non-US citizen at CDC, we have what's called Title 42 positions, and those are typically geared towards folks who are not US citizens. It's not an FTE position, but you still get benefits if you still, I think, also are in the retirement, like we call it TSP. But again, it's based off your qualifications and do you meet the needs of the position that they're looking for.
Thank you. All right, well, they each get a minute, okay, to any final thoughts? Any final thoughts or thoughts of encouragement to give to our students as they head out into their search, considering the great city of Atlanta?
Gosh, yeah, I don't know. Come to Atlanta.
Yeah.
We like we like it here. And yeah, just like I know it's definitely a challenging time. It took me 6 months before I found like my full-time position after graduate school. So I don't know if that's discouraging or encouraging, but definitely just to say that like you'll find it, and if you stick with like your interests and what you're most passionate about, like I think you'll find your fit.
That's and that's realism is what that is, Abby. That it certainly can take less time, but on average it takes 6 months. So that is, and that's average. So notice it could take a little longer. It really just depends on how much you are doing the networking, being intentional. So it's not to discourage, but it's to be realistic. Jasmine.
Yeah, I echo that. I actually did not find a job after undergraduate. My mom helped me get a job. I'll be completely transparent, and I had to interview and submit my resume, but it definitely was a favor, and it was in 2011. So we're also talking not a great time to be coming out of school. No, 2007. I'm sorry, 2000. No, 2011. 2011. It's not a great time to be looking for work, especially not out of undergrad. And I knew it was going to be something that was temporary for me, so I was desperate, and I was like, I'll do anything because I need cash to help pay for my graduate applications. And I would echo again, Abby, after grad school, it took me about 6 months. I graduated in May with my MPH, and I did not have a job until October. I was nannying, I was bartending, I was in the gig industry, just making it work until I found a job. So I definitely say be persistent. If there's even an inkling of interest of how that job can help you further down the road, I say yes. There's nothing wrong with starting a position, and it might not be the best fit, but you do the job until you find something else. So I would say also don't be picky. Get your foot in the door, network, meet people, and use it as your step along your path.
Thank you to both of you. We so appreciate your time, your insight. You've given some great suggestions and just shared honestly about your paths, and that's really what we're looking for in panelists. So you've aced it. Thank you very much. And you will, to the students, we'll be sending you this recording so that you'll be able to watch it again. And if our panelists want to share a type of contact information, they can let me know, and then we can put it in the email that we send out. So I just want to thank both of you, and I hope that you continue to enjoy your positions both at CARE and the CDC. Thank you very much.
And you can please feel free to share my information. I've been trying to
Okay.
type in the chat. I don't know why. I'm
It's not
happy with you
working. Okay.
sharing. Yeah, you can share
Okay.
and people can email me.
All right, great. And thank you, Abby, for putting yours in. That was very generous of you. All right, everyone, enjoy your day. And for those of you going to the career fair, we hope you find it a great opportunity. Thank you again. This is wonderful.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Bye.